Shalom, all praises, blessings, glories, and honors to Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim, Racha Kodash. Double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone, who have taught me this truth, as well of men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad, which means peace and mercy, to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the seed line of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom, and Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying and informative. Now this will be a response to the lesson that you brothers and few sisters see before you, entitled Division. French President Macron says it's time for Europe to quit dependency on US for security. Uploaded by GMS Watchman. The priest Yashalam here in the GMS New York main camp. St. Mark chapter 3 verse 24. If a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And indeed, if a kingdom, which in this case, the kingdom of the wicked, who, according to the book of Malachi chapter 1 verse 4, is Esau, Edom, the so-called Caucasian race, be divided, and it is divided. There are divisions within the kingdom of the Edomites between their hegemony, their elite banking families. Against itself, that kingdom cannot stand, and indeed, this kingdom will not stand, for it will fall in the very near future, according to biblical prophecy. Now, this is a very major news update, and the article was published by the Wall Street Journal. Again, the article reads, Francis Macron calls on Europe to reduce reliance on the US for security. Now, I have the article, well, I thought I did. Well, actually, I do. Here, popped up as you see before you. And it reads, French president says he doesn't see his recommendation as alternative to NATO. Aboard the French presidential plane, French President Emmanuel Macron said Europe needs to take a more assertive role within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, reducing its reliance on the US and developing its own defense capabilities to secure peace in a region rocked by the war in Ukraine. Speaking to True reporters on his return to Paris from a summit in Amman, Jordan, Mr. Macron stressed that he doesn't see his push to develop European defense as an alternative to NATO. And France is one of the heads of the beast. That is the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, which the 7 heads represents NATO, which France is a part of, and the horns, the EU. Okay. Again, the 7 heads of the beast represents NATO, and the 10 horns of the beast represents the EU. Okay. Now, this should immediately make us think of Revelation, the 17th chapter, the latter end of the chapter, concerning how The beast shall hate the whore. Okay? This is the buildup. And this is the part of biblical prophecy. Remember, not too long ago, you had Brexit. And over the last couple of years, there's been reports of Frexit, which is France's exit out of the EU. So a lot of things have been happening concerning prophecy, concerning the division of Esau, Edom's kingdom. The scripture says in the book of Obadiah, the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. They have laid, roughly paraphrasing scripture, they have laid a wound under thee, which is just a metaphor for how America's allies will soon eventually turn against her and betray her. Because remember, according to Revelation, the 17th chapter, the beast shall hate the whore. And that whore is America, Babylon the Great. Speaking to true reporters on his return to Paris from a summit in Amman, Jordan, Mr. Macron stressed that he doesn't see his push to develop European defense as an alternative to NATO. A stronger Europe, Mr. Macron said, would allow the continent to become more autonomous within the alliance, acting inside NATO with NATO, but also not depending on NATO. So this pretty much concludes the article. Brief as it was, yet very weighty, because it is a part of the buildup towards what is written here in Revelation chapter 17, verse 16, which reads, and the 10 horns, again, the 10 horns represents the EU, which thou sawest upon the beast, which represents NATO. The beast is the pagan Roman Empire, which came back in the form of NATO and the EU, with America being an extension of that empire. These shall hate the whore. The whore is America, Babylon the Great. And we've been seeing America's allies within NATO slowly beginning to hate America, and shall make her desolate. How? Through shooting thermonuclear warheads over here into the land of America, Babylon the Great, according to biblical prophecy, making her desolate, eating her flesh and burning her with fire, and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So all of these things are coming very soon, according to prophecy. Okay? In other news from the RT, iconic Russian arms maker boosts production. What should this remind us of? This should remind us of Joel, the 3rd chapter, concerning nations beating their plowshares into swords and their pruning hooks into spears. Many major arms producers have been increasing their productions of weapons of mass destruction, especially nuclear warheads, nuclear missiles. And this is just one of them. That's a Russian-based arms producer. The Kalashnikov concern plans to develop a new line of reconnaissance and combat drones in the coming year. The major Russian arms manufacturer, Kalashnikov Group, says it has fulfilled its latest state defense order in full and is now looking to ramp up production in 2023. The concern's president, Alan Lushnikov, announced on Tuesday. In an interview with the Russia 24 TV channel, Lushnikov said that 2022 turned out to be a difficult and challenging year, while successful nonetheless. He added that next year, aside from focusing on the next defense order, the company plans to expand production of the new Chu Kavin SVCH sniper rifle, a replacement for the Drag Unov SVD, and to develop a new line of tactical level drones. Everything that isn't launched from an airfield is our niche, Lushnikov said. This includes everything from small drones, both reconnaissance and combat ones, to ammunition. He stressed that modern unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, are crucial in developing the military potential of the Russian military. Lushkinov added that the supply of UAVs already in production at Kalashnikov would be further increased. Read more. Russian troops to receive cutting-edge small arms. Again, this is another example of a nation taking its economic wealth and using it towards the research, development, and enhancement of weapons of warfare, weapons of mass destruction, from guns to tanks, drones, jets, and ultimately nuclear warheads. And this is all a part of biblical prophecy, according to the scriptures. It says, back in August, the Kalashnikov Group announced that it would be providing Russian troops currently fighting in Ukraine with new cutting-edge weapons, including the PPK-20 submachine gun and SVCH rifles. The PPK-20 weighs just under 3 kilograms. It's fitted with a suppressor and has a standardized mountain rail similar to the Picatinny rail used on Western weapons. SVCH, meanwhile, is described as a new generation of Russian designated marksman rifle that is lighter than its predecessor. The SVD has high precision and is capable of hitting targets at a distance of around 1,200 meters. This concludes the article. And the perspective of this article is basically to filter it according to the scriptures, referencing it to the prophecy written of in Joel, the 3rd chapter, around the 10th verse, when it says that these nations are going to be beating their plowshares into swords and their pruning hooks into spears, because we are in a season of war, according to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the 8th verse. Hence the reason why these nations have been doing what they've been doing and producing arms. The Lord is putting it into the minds, into the hearts of their generals and their kings to do these things in preparation for the thorough woe, according to Revelation, the 11th chapter, the 14th verse, which cometh quickly after the mark of the beast, the CHIP, has been mandated globally. Okay? Putin bans all oil sales to price cap states. So I expect to see some interesting things concerning energy in the near future. EU blackouts inevitable. Austria. It's not a matter of if, but when some parts of the bloc go dark, Vienna's defense minister has said. The European Union has little chance of staving off power outages amid the energy crunch exacerbated by the Ukraine conflict and should brace for its impact, Austrian Defense Minister Claudia Tanner warned on Tuesday. Speaking to Die Welt, the ministry evaluated the possibility of blackouts in some parts of the EU as very high in the near future. The risk of a widespread power failure has once again increased significantly as a result of the Ukraine war, she said. The question is not if it happens, but when, the minister stressed. Tanner also claimed, without providing evidence, that the Russian President Vladimir Putin hacker attacks on the Western energy grid are a form of hybrid warfare. So They are basically attributing these recent attacks on certain power grids as being Russian-based hacker attacks or hybrid warfare. So Russia is going to once again be used as an excuse for these failing and destroyed grids around the U.S. because there have been reports of such incidents. But somebody has to be a scapegoat, and Esau sees trouble as an opportunity. To him, trouble is opportunity, and they'll use that trouble in the form of what is known as Hegelian dialectic. In other words, order out of chaos. They create the chaos so that they can be justified in introducing and subsequently enforcing the order for that chaos. Okay? Not more than gradualism, not more than a psychological tactic that these devils use. And it's played out at this point. It says we shouldn't pretend that this is just a theory. We have to prepare for blackouts in Austria and in Europe, not just in Europe, but also in North America too. Right here in America, Babylon the Great, and in Canada. The minister stated, according to Tanner, Austria's military as well as other governmental services regularly conduct relevant exercises. They are also building awareness through a campaign to distribute small brochures in public places on what should be done in case of a blackout. UK to use coal-fired power plants to keep lights on. When asked whether such a measure could trigger panic, the minister dismissed the notion. I know there's a thin line between raising awareness with a sense of proportion and stirring up fears. Well, like Scarecrow said in Batman Begins, there's nothing to fear more than fear itself, right? Oh man, I love the Batman sequel, by the way. But I think, as I'm sure many of you brothers and a few sisters do, it says, but I think we've done quite well so far, she said. The specter of power outages has been haunting European countries for several months now, as the continent has been reeling under an energy crisis worsened by skyrocketing fuel prices due to the sanctions the West imposed on Russia over the Ukraine conflict. Earlier this month, German media reported that Switzerland was considering a measure to limit the use of electricity vehicles to save energy. Around the same time, Xavier P. Chazic, the head of French energy regulator RTE, warned that the country could face rolling blackouts due to low temperatures and high energy demand. And China, they have to do everything in their power to pretty much keep China in a very stagnant state, because should China fully begin to open up, the demand for energy is going to skyrocket, and that's going to push energy prices very, 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 very high. Possibly right back up to where we were seeing in the early summer, early up June the year, where prices were damn near $6 a gallon. So they know what they're doing, man. It says the risk could also be exacerbated by extended maintenance halts of several nuclear reactors, Bloomberg reported last week. In late November, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova insisted that EU policymakers have only themselves to blame for their ongoing energy crunch. Which that's true. They shot themselves in the foot, following after the Great Whore. Yeah. See that? Oil rises as China lifts COVID restrictions. So that's pretty much it. The point has been made. Lord's on this lesson was edifying and informative to the elect. The Wadi Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Achak, Wadash for putting the spirit upon me to do this lesson to edify the elect. And Lord's willing, you brothers and a few sisters were fed well in this discourse. So with that, I say shalom until the next.